about the film. It's an absolute pleasure. But before we do that, here's a quick clip from his 3 daughters.
I understand what a stressful situation it is. It's very nice that you're all here at a time like this. We all want your father to transition as peaceful as possible.
It's nice that it's us. This is the way it should be, the way he would want it.
You made a great impression with this movie, as you both do with all your TV stuff and movies. It's absolutely brilliant. But I'm wondering, is it an honor when you're at the point that you kind of get contacted by somebody who's written a script and basically has written roles for each of you, I believe? Do you know what I mean? With you in mind, in a way. Is that a point where you have to even pinch yourself and go, I can't believe there's amazing people out there writing stuff with me in mind? Do you know what I mean? That must be crazy.
Well, that's not happening, more than this one experience with Ozza, who Carrie and I both separately, because we hadn't met before this movie, but we both have our own relationships with Ozza that predate this film. So I don't now have this idea of myself of people writing things for me all over the place. But Ozza is a dear friend, and so it was a nice, sweet surprise to see that he had written this and also written it with Carrie and Natasha in mind as well. And to think that all 3 of us could ever do this together was mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, and I still have to fight for things. I just made a tape last week. I auditioned for White Lotus, for example, also. But when somebody you respect and love comes to you like that, it's very moving and gratifying.
And then when you read the script, do you read it different? Are you reading it going, I wonder why he thought I'd be good for this? Do you know what I mean? Or are you like these people?
We had different experiences of that.
Yeah, I read it and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Ozza thinks of me so much softer and gentler than I think of myself. How sweet. And it seems like a nice opportunity. I usually would be gravitating, I think, towards the Katie role because I like playing unlikable people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Katie can come across on the page.
Absolutely. I love it. Yeah, and I often play sort of very hyper-verbal people, so it didn't surprise me that I was kicking off something with a monologue. But and I saw myself absolutely in Katie. And Ozza has said too that he was actually more responding perhaps even to the way we sound. It was actually maybe rhythmic.
Oh, funny, yeah.
And I always thought of it as like, oh, he thinks of me as a Katie, but I think he was actually thinking more about our rhythms as people because he thought of it like a jazz orchestra, sort of.
Okay. And watching this, I mean, it's obviously a very emotional film, but there's a lot of close-ups. There's a lot of monologues is probably a strong word, but there's a lot of you close up for each of you, to even on the phone. I always wondered, there's obviously nobody on the other end of that phone. Is that a draining experience as an actor? Because I assume you're throwing all of you into it, but to get in that mindset and to stay in it for, I assume, an extent, I don't know how long this took to film, but is that a draining?
3 weeks.
Yeah, it's a very short shoot. Yeah, it's a very, so we made this very independently. Mm-hmm. It was a very, 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 very small budget, one that we do not say the number of, but it was very small. And Netflix acquired it out of the love and response that it had in Toronto, which we couldn't be present for because of the actors' strike. Mm-hmm. And so I find filming something this small with this many constraints really rejuvenating, actually. And I think being able to focus on so much language and being able to focus on shooting so much in one day because of our lack of time to be super rejuvenating. But I wasn't coming off of a job immediately, and I am also childless. So I might have had a rejuvenating experience. Well, maybe Carrie had not. I don't know. How did you feel?
Yeah, it was. I think I was just about to quit the business before that, and then as it came with the script, I was like, well, I guess I'll do one more. This will be my last. This will be my swan song, because I just feel really underprepared for everything I do now. And this, because it was so language heavy, I felt especially underprepared for.
Okay. It must be very different, though, to the huge budget, like the Marvel Universe. I know, obviously, Elizabeth, you've been a big part of that. You've been part of that universe too, Carrie. So I assume that is a completely different world and set.
It's all, nothing unfolds like this. I mean, we never tell a story in order anymore. We shot this in order, more or less. We never do that. I shot on 3 episodes in one day the other day because we block shoot everything now. And you're like, I don't know what episode this is. Yeah. Who am I? It's so different.
Yeah, and it's incredibly helpful in a way that you almost forget because you become numb to the process, jumping around through multiple episodes or shooting the end of the movie before you've even started shooting a week of photography. And so I think I totally forgot of what could be learned from having the privilege of shooting in order. And I think so much was learned that wouldn't have been choices we made had we shot out of order.
Okay. And I mentioned your connection to the Marvel Universe. I have to ask, because a lot of people always are asking whether your character would come back or whether you would go back to Wanda. There's rumors out there of all sorts of stuff. I've interviewed Marvel people before. I know you can't say anything, but I'm just, would you go back if you got an offer? Is it a character you love, a universe you love going back to when you have come back?
It's a character that I love going back to when there's a way to use her well. And I think I have been lucky that when I started, I was used well within Age of Ultron, and then I think people didn't know what to do with me for a second there, and then they were able to utilize the character well in interesting ways of telling stories in ways they hadn't yet. And so if there's a good way to use her, I'm always happy to come back, however they can make that make sense.
Yeah. And go back to this film though. Natasha obviously is the third sister, so I have to as well ask, what were what was the relationship like between the three of you when they said cut? Did you feel like, I know it's only 3 weeks, you're telling me now that the filming process, but did you feel a little bit like sisters by the end?
Yeah.
I mean, I think, even though it was 3 weeks, in the same way the film plays with time feeling meaningless, like it can feel like what Azza said, it makes like sometimes getting a coffee feel like it could have been 3 hours long, or watching someone die in 2 minutes. Like the playing of time in this film is, I think, similar how I felt in memory of making it, where yes, it was 3 weeks or 3.5 weeks, and it was super short getting to have that time together, but it took up such a huge space in my memory because of the experience felt incredibly rich. And we spent so many hours with one another, caring so deeply about something together. And so it feels more expansive than the time actually was, in the similar way that the characters are experiencing time within the film, strangely.
Yeah, we really understood the assignment. I mean, everybody showed up really vulnerable and prepared to be vulnerable to each other, because that's the gig. I mean, you don't have time to do anything else.
Yeah.
And we really just really love each other, I would say.
Yes. It's been interesting doing press because we end up talking for such a long time because we want to
next to each other,
but not with each other.
The plan is we all will take turns watching over. She hasn't done a shift, right?
Oh, yeah.
You don't find that strange? Once we get here, she steps back from all responsibility?
Your life is perfect. You got your kid. Probably gonna pop out a bunch more.
No, nothing pops. There's no popping. That's not the way it is.
Okay, whatever. It looks like popping to me.
That was Carrie, Coon and Elizabeth Olsen. They're telling us all about their brand new movie, His Three Daughters, which is streaming right now on Netflix. It's going to be a big one come award season, let me tell you. And stay with us.